If you browse the internet about how to get from Amman to Jerusalem without spending a fortune, you'll probably come out empty-handed or with conflicting information. That happened to me for sure. If you're one of those people, you should probably watch this video. Let's explore. Hello everyone and welcome to the Freedom Alternative. Alright, so this is a wildly atypical video for this channel, but it has to be done because literally nobody explains to travelers in a simple manner how to travel the 100 or so kilometers distance between Amman, Jordan and Jerusalem, Israel. The two capital cities are very close to each other, but there is no straightforward way to get there, or at least not an obvious way. So, under the authority that I have just traveled that road and didn't come out bankrupt at the end of it, you should at least listen to me telling you how it can absolutely be done. So, first of all, you should decide one day ahead when you want to travel. There is no on-the-fly transport that doesn't cost a fortune. I mean, yeah, sure, you could take the taxi, but if you're lucky, you might end up paying only 250 euros in total, if you are lucky and if you speak Arabic or Russian and can hold your ground in a harsh negotiation with a Jordanian cab driver. A lot of ifs there. Once you know that you want to leave, let's say tomorrow, head towards what is locally known as the Abdali jet bus station. JET, or Jordanian Express Tourist Transport, is one of the only two highly reliable sort of public transport companies that you will encounter in Jordan. There are a few others, but all the others are, well, organized under the Arabic way. That is to say, quite random. Reliable for sure, but random. If you're accustomed to the Middle East, then that would be fine, but if you're not, like the plethora of German tourists that I met while there, it's gonna be quite unpleasant. Anyway, it's usually no more than 3 Jordanian dinars or JDs to get from almost anywhere in Amman to the Abdali jet bus station by cab, which is very close to downtown Amman, but up on a hill on the King Hussein Boulevard. Like most things in Amman, this particular objective is also up on a hill somewhere, one of the 19 hills to be more precise. Spoiler alert, do not even attempt to walk unless you have the whole freaking day available. The slope of the hill is pretty steep and it's not worth the cab fare. Cabs are pretty cheap by European standards in Amman, but only in Amman, not in Petra. That's a whole different story. So, this is the area where you need to be. It's called the New Downtown, and Abdali is the name of the project to uplift this area to make it a fancy area that appeals to Westerners. Anyway, long story short, this is the office you need to go to. Now, at the office, ask for a ticket to Jerusalem and insist that you want to cross into Israel, because some of the clerks there are not particularly fluent in any other language than Arabic. You don't have to be rude, they're very polite and kind people, but it's better safe than sorry, and you should insist. A one-way ticket cost me 11 JD, which is about 16 US dollars. This is the most cost-efficient way. You will find allegedly cheaper offers, but nobody tells you beforehand that those offers only take you to the Allenby Bridge, which separates Jordan from Israel, and then you will have to pay an additional 7 JD just to cross the bridge, plus 1 JD for every extra luggage. Nobody tells you that beforehand. If you do the way I advise, the 11 JD includes the extra fees and you're all set. Now, usually the bus leaves once a day at 6 a.m., but sometimes it's 7 a.m. and sometimes it's 5 a.m. It does depend on the season, but it's always very early in the morning and has been for over a decade now, and I trust this information to remain consistent even years after I publish this video. Anyway, be there 30 minutes before departure the next day. The departure hour will be written on the ticket. You don't have to be able to read Arabic because it's pretty explicitly written on the ticket. Now, once you board the bus, get ready for a very long journey, in the sense that it will take you 6 hours to get into Israel. And the biggest trouble is on the Jordanian side of the border, believe it or not. That is what surprised me the most. Now, once you're at the border, the bus will stop at a very weird building in the middle of nowhere. And I didn't have the balls to attempt to videotape there, so you'll have to trust my word on this. There, you'll have to go through a bureaucratic process that makes no sense whatsoever. So, first of all, you have to fill out a small sheet of paper with your name, date of arrival in Jordan, date of departure, your legal nationality, and the number of your passport. Then you give the passport to one officer at one counter. The officer will then guide you to another counter where you have to pay the exit fee. This is something quite non-trivial. Jordan has both an entry fee and an exit fee. The exit fee is 10 JD or $14 but can only be paid in cash in the local currency. So make sure you have a 10 JD bill with you, because if you don't, well, then you can only get cash from one ATM machine that is somewhere in that building that rarely functions, and when it does function, it charges you another 7 JD transaction fee. It happened to a British fella almost next to me. Now, keep in mind that the exit fee is 10 JD if you spend more than 3 days in Jordan. If not, it can be higher. Also, if you used any voucher or other program to get around the entry fee, such as Jordan Pass, which I use to reduce my costs in the country, you also have to keep in mind that you must have stayed at least 3 nights in Jordan. If not, you may be asked to pay more than 10 JD. But as a general rule, 10 JD is what you have to pay. After you pay the fee, they give you a sort of a stamp that acts as a receipt. With that, you go to the third clerk, who in the meantime has scanned your passport and is waiting to apply the exit visa once you present him or her evidence that you have paid the exit fee. And then you get your passport back. This whole process usually takes about 2 hours, give or take. Make sure you have water with you, small change to buy coffee, and a lot of cigarettes. And trust me, you will need those cigarettes even if you generally do not smoke. Now, here comes the fun part. After eventually everyone in your bus gets their passports, you'll get to board another bus, and if you bought the ticket the way I suggested, you just give that ticket to the second driver and it's all good. If you thought you were smarter, you have to pay the second driver at least 7 JD, assuming you have no luggage, which would be quite weird. Finally, after roughly 3 hours and a half since your departure from Amman, the bus will eventually hit the road to actually cross the Allenby Bridge. Now, keep in mind, it's called the Allenby Bridge in Israel, but in Jordan it's sometimes known as the King Hussein Bridge. Well, but until then, not so fast. There are 2 additional checkpoints on the Jordanian side. One verifies the luggage and one verifies that everyone in the bus paid the exit fee. So make sure you don't lose that damn sticker, because if you do, you're in big trouble. After the 2 checkpoints, the bus will eventually go straight ahead across the Allenby Bridge, and it will stop literally in the entrance of the Israeli customs. That's where you get off and physically carry your luggage. The Israeli border is crossed entirely on foot. So if you think about renting a car, forget about that. Private vehicles cannot cross through the Allenby crossing at all. Well, Israel doesn't have an entry fee, so you're off the hook with that, but be ready for weird questions. There are basically 3 checkpoints on the Israeli side too, but the process is much more streamlined. The first is where you put your luggage through a scanner while a border officer asks you where you're from, looks at your passport, and asks you the purpose of the visit. It takes no more than 2 minutes. The second checkpoint, located just 20 meters ahead, is the proper immigration control. There, they no longer ask anything about the luggage, but the officer will ask pretty detailed questions, some may think even intrusive questions, though I've crossed way too many borders in my lifetime to be surprised anymore. I got a customs officer that spoke Romanian, so I had the interview in Romanian once she saw my passport. That was quite nice, actually. Anyway, after you're done with the interview, they'll issue a non-worker visa, usually valid for 4 months. Israel no longer applies stamps on the passport, so the visa is literally that little blue sticker. Make sure you never lose that sticker while you're in Israel, and trust me, you will need it quite often. Then comes the third checkpoint, where they merely scan the visa and not much else. On the Israeli customs, you shouldn't be spending more than 45 minutes, even if you arrive in a crowded day. Now, once you're on the other side, once you exit the building, turn right and walk until the end of the building and then turn right again. Trust me, this will never change. It's been that way since forever. There you will find some minivans. Everyone calls them sherut, which literally means service, but they are basically a shared route, a shared taxi. Before you board one, though, look for their ticketing office, which I understand it changes its location quite often, but it's somewhere on that side. The driver does not issue tickets. That's something uncommon in the whole area, but it is what it is. The cost is 42 shekels plus 5 shekels for every extra luggage, so that's about $13 US. The sherut will take you from the border to the middle of Jerusalem, more precisely to the Nablus gate or the Damascus gate. And voila! You have arrived in Jerusalem without spending a fortune and without hitchhiking, which you should avoid at all costs, by the way, or other unreasonable risks. Now, before you arrive at the Damascus gate, you may or may not be stopped one more time by an IDF checkpoint. Don't worry, if you're watching this video, you're likely not on their radar. Alright, so let's recap. 11 JD or $16 to get from downtown Amman to the entrance into Israel. 10 JD or $15 to be able to legally exit Jordan, and then 47 shekels, assuming you have one luggage, or $13 US to get from the border to downtown Jerusalem. So in total, $44 US for the whole journey. When I traveled, the whole ordeal took about 6 hours. Admittedly, pissed off by the Jordanian bureaucracy, I spent some time in the air-conditioned smoking area on the Israeli side of the border. So at best, you can narrow it down to 5 hours if you're lucky, but it's rough. Now, of course, you can disregard this video and try your luck on your own. That's what a German tourist did, and I met him again a few days later in Tel Aviv. He had spent a bit over 300 euros in total for the exact same journey, only his lasted 4 hours and a half instead of 5. It can even be narrowed down to 3 hours if you buy a VIP pass on the Israeli side and you avoid some of the queues, but that would raise your cost even further. Although many people attempt to use this route, a few actually manage to avoid being overcharged at least once. This method was not written or spoken about in complete fashion anywhere on the internet, at least not when I looked for it while I was still in Jordan. Also, most of the info I managed to find was highly outdated, like 7 or 8 years outdated. The fact is that public transport in Jordan is pretty much non-existent, and what does exist, it is rarely known by the locals. And to make things worse, the locals shy away from admitting up front that they do not know how to get to Jerusalem via public transport, and instead give you information that is almost always either wrong or highly outdated. Anyway, I will mention a lot more about that when I'll make the video about Jordanian politics, people, and society. But for the purposes of this video, keep this in mind. Unless you're told something by a person working for that particular company, do assume that what you are told is at least partially wrong. Backpacking in Jordan and in the Middle East in general, except for Israel, is still almost entirely a new thing, and the locals haven't yet adjusted to this, and the services are still not that straightforward. But they do exist. You just need patience, like a lot of patience, to be more precise. So, if you travel this route, please do share in the comment section your experience. Also, if you plan to travel this route, please feel free to ask me questions and I will do my best to answer them. As an experienced traveler, I probably can answer to most questions related to traveling alone in that particular area and another 80 plus countries. So yeah. That's basically it for now. Now, to the regular subscribers, I do apologize for this video, and if this video comes a bit off, but seeing how much misery so many tourists have had to endure when I personally crossed that border is motivation enough to make an exception, make this video, so that hopefully others don't find themselves paying a fortune to travel 100 kilometers. And with all of that being said, thank you all for watching, thank you for your consistent and generous support. Please do consider throwing a shekel my way if you derive any value from the work being done here, and I will see you all soon on the Freedom Alternative.